Oh, get that water, bro. He's about to preach it.
You can tell I'm not the normal preacher. I brought my own water here.
Hey, man.
So, I want to thank you guys for coming out this morning.
There's
so many things you could be doing on your Sunday morning. Well, thanks for coming out and spending with us. Now, if you don't know me, I actually don't lead the church here.
Wow.
I'm actually the leader of the preteen ministry. I am the leader of the smallest tribe. Well, and you know, if you compare my family to the Santos family, I'm the leader of the smallest clan. A bit like Gideon or something.
Oh, wow, come on,
bro. But Mark asked me to preach, and so I decided to come and here.
Come on, bro.
All right, so how many of you guys watched the Super Bowl?
Oh, bro.
Man, I saw Chris come up here to do the welcome, and he's like a diehard Eagles fan, so I expected somebody behind him doing like this the whole time.
That would be good.
Talk about,
next year. Not.
So, by the way, did anybody else think that Chris really wants to preach?
I preached. He did. He had 3
Estimated
points.
that 2 to 4 million people flooded the streets in Philadelphia for the Eagles parade.
Wow, that's crazy.
You know, why do they do that? It's because they love it, you know? And some people, they just love sports. You'll talk to them and it's like stat, you know? I'll go hang out with Chris, Tavis, and Joe Santos. And it's kind of like being stuck in an ESPN, you know, like Sports Center. I really want to join, but I can't. So for other people, they will hang out overnight outside of Best Buy to get that big screen TV on Black Friday. It's like you see them lining up, like it's the most important thing this year, you know? And some people will camp outside of the Apple store for days to get a phone that's slightly better than the phone they currently have. They're playing on a phone that's like slightly less good than the one they're about to get. But it's like, they'll sit out there for days for that because they're excited about that technology. They're excited about the engineering. What are you most excited about in your life?
Good question.
Come on.
What is the passion of your life?
Come on, bro.
You know, I still like those things, but 21 years ago, something new started in my life. And I would like to say that I found something, but I wasn't really looking for it, so it's more like it found me, but it's become the passion of my life. This morning, I want to share with you why I love God.
Amen.
Point number one, I'm just going to share with you 4 things that I love about God. And point number one, what I love about God is that He loves to do the impossible. You know, God is awesome. He's not like the idols that you see. One time I was, walking with my son in Chinatown, and we saw all these people worshiping this statue. And I said, "Hey son, what's that statue made of?" He's like, "Oh, I think it's stone." I'm like, "All right, see this pavement here? See, it's got gum on it, and that dude just spit on it. What's that made of?" He's like, "Stone." I'm like, "Is this God?" He's like, "No." "Is that God?" "No, it's stone." A child can understand that. I'm so glad my God is not like that. He's not stuck in a pose, you know? If you look at some of the temples in China, they're like little dolls dressed up, like with an angry face, you know? It's like, I'm glad my God's not a doll. But, I love how God likes to do things. And He loves to overcome something that's impossible. And I don't know about you, but that's my kind of God. That's a God that I can get behind. Someone who loves to do things that are impossible. You know, sometimes God does things in the Bible and He gives somebody a plan and it doesn't make any sense. You're like, "You want me to do what? I don't get it." You know, if God watched movies, if I can imagine Him watching a movie, I bet you would like The Hobbit. He's like, 3-foot person, 300-foot dragon, I can get behind that. Those are the odds that God likes.
Yeah.
If you just look through the Bible, 2 Samuel 5, God tells David to position your army in front of some trees. And when you hear the marching of the opposing army resounding off the trees, that it fills you with terror, that's the sound of victory.
Amen.
When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are called out, and they say, you are going to get thrown into the fiery furnace.
Amen.
God waits until they actually get thrown in to rescue them. And you think that Daniel should have seen it coming because he saw that, right? He's like, he's praying not to get thrown in the lion's den. Sorry, man. You're not getting rescued. You're going in first. Because God loves to do the impossible.
Good point, bro.
You know, when Jesus was threatened with death and filled with so much anguish that he sweat blood in the Garden of Gethsemane, he wasn't rescued. God allowed him to be killed, and God raised him from the dead. When God was looking for the apostle who would write the majority of the New Testament, and he's looking around, who could this person be who is going to preach the word to the entire world? Let's get somebody who right now is killing Christians. He chose Paul, who would not have been on my list. Yet, that is a God that we worship this morning.
Yeah, good point, bro.
Sometimes I read something that God does, and I just sit there trying to process it.
Right.
It's just mind-blowing. Imagine trying to lead a rebellious people to obey.
Wow.
Imagine trying to unify faithless people to go to war. Imagine marching on fortified cities without weapons. Imagine taking on cities ruled by giants, high walls, gates, and bars with people who are not trained for war.
Wow.
Imagine taking prideful people and teaching them humility. Imagine fighting wars without ever lifting a finger. Imagine fixing the impossible. Healing people without medicine. Saving people from death by using death itself.
Wow. Wow.
It's
Come on,
amazing.
Jeremy. Good point, bro.
Come on, Jeremy.
He takes a guy who likes to wear weird socks and starts a revolution at UH Manoa campus.
One man.
He just showed me.
Well, put the shoe back on.
We worship an awesome God.
Amen, bro.
Impossible.
Yeah,
Good
so,
point, Jeremy. Come on.
Today we're going to read one of those stories that if you sit and think about it, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
We're going to be in the book of Joshua.
Come on, bro.
So, before we get in there, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background, a little bit of backstory, just to set up the story.
Come on, Jeremy. Come on, Jeremy. Come on, Jeremy.
Go ahead and be turning to Joshua. They'll get the time to take a sip.
Come on.
All right. So, let's just say what happened in Deuteronomy up to this point. Okay? So, even after 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, manna and quail in the desert, water from the rock, the people of Israel still don't believe that God can give them victory into the promised land. And because of this lack of faith, they're forced to wander the desert for 40 years until everybody from that generation, minus 3 people, dies.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
He then tells them, while they're wandering, I have rules. While you guys are wandering around, you're not allowed to fight anybody. He raised up an entire generation that had never lifted a sword.
Yeah.
He then takes Moses. He's like, all right, now I'm going to take the oldest guy in the bunch. Okay? Moses, time for you to lead again. In fact, you're going to lead a nation that has never been to war against 2 of the greatest Amorite kings that have ever existed that stand in the way of the promised land. You're going to go take on Sihon, and then after that, you know what? I'm going to give you an easier task. I'm going to let you take on a giant, this guy named Og, and he has fortified cities with walls and bars and these huge gates. And that's what you're going to do.
Wow.
Wow.
So the crazy thing is they go and they do it. Moses steps back up, leads the people of Israel, and they just destroy Sihon, king of Heshbon.
Oh, man.
And then they go and they demolish Og,
Come on.
king of Bashan.
Wow.
They just demolish these 2 kingdoms of Amorites. And they do it all with the people who have never been to war.
great.
And their leader is not valiantly running in front of them. He's probably hobbling behind me. But it's like, that's how I'm going to walk.
Amen.
But then you take this guy who people have not had faith in for 40 years and set him up for these amazing victories. And then what does God do next? A little bit of the unexpected. He goes, okay, it's time for you to step down now.
Wow.
Because I promised you, you would never see the promised land, Moses.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that leader that just led you in those 2 great victories, I'm going to take him out. And you know who's going to be in his place? I'm going to put the guy who failed you 40 years ago. The guy who could not convince you that I was awesome enough to take you into the promised land, he's going to be the guy that I'm putting in charge.
Come on, Jeremy.
He takes a guy named Joshua. Now Joshua, a lot of people think he was this amazing guy. If you actually read about him in the Bible, he's not really a traditional hero. I think Joshua had his doubts about leading people.
Come on, Jeremy.
He had failed to sway them to have faith 40 years ago.
Wow. Come on, bro.
And because of that, because he couldn't actually convince people to go into the promised land, he had to live through a curse for 40 years. Can you imagine what it was like to be him? To know that you had failed. And when Joshua was appointed, God gives him some great advice. Do you ever have somebody come to you and say, hey, can I give you some advice? Why do they do that? Because you need it. What I'm about to say is what you need to hear. Okay? Because it's not who you are.
Yeah.
But it's who you need to be.
Come on.
So what does Joshua go to him and what does God go and say to Joshua? He's like, hey Joshua, listen up, I got something to tell you in Joshua chapter 1 verse 6.
Come on, bro.
God tells him something very simple. God says, Joshua, be strong and courageous. Why did he tell him this? Because he wasn't strong and he wasn't courageous.
Yeah.
You want more proof? So Joshua, he gets convinced by God. All right, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and talk to all the leaders. So he gets all the leaders around and he goes, guys, God is with us. We're going to do awesome things. This is what God wants us to do. What do you guys think? And they're like, we're with you, Joshua. Heart and soul, we'll obey you. Only one thing. Look what they say back to him in verse 18. Please be strong and courageous. You know why they say that? Because they know him.
Oh, wow.
So Joshua is now the leader. And 40 years ago, he went in to spy out the land.
Right.
Right? With 12 other people. So it's basically him and 11 other people. 12 people, one from each tribe, to go in to spy out the land.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, God is with us. What's the most faithful thing that I can do? Let's go spy out the land. Let's see how hard it is. So he sends in some more spies to check out the land. Not really a faithful act. What are you going to find out? Wait, God, I think there's something you didn't notice. What are you going to find? So he sends these people in the land, but at least he's smart enough not to send 12 and not have them report to all the people what they think. Like, what do you guys think about this battle, you know? Because that didn't go so well 40 years ago. So he's like, okay, I'm going to send in a few, and then they're going to report directly to me. Don't talk to other people. They come back to him, and they tell him, you know what, Joshua? The people are in great fear. And then Joshua has confidence. What kind of intel is that? Is that any usable intel? He didn't tell me how to defeat them. He just said they're afraid of me. That makes me feel better. For some reason, the people being afraid of him gives Joshua confidence. Why does he need to do recon if God is with him?
Right. That's a good point, bro.
Why does he care what's in the promised land? Why does he care what kind of weapons they have? Why does he care how big their walls are? Why does he care? He has trouble being strong and courageous.
Come on,
Do
Jeremy.
you know what God is looking for? Do you know what God is looking for in you? Do you have trouble believing that God will make you a leader? Do you look around and you think, oh, that brother or sister is attractive, and I'm not as attractive as they are. Oh, that brother, he's super talented. Did you see him sing? Wow.
Come on, my person.
That brother, you know, he has an amazing job. I don't. that brother or sister has amazing abilities. I don't like that.
Come on, Jeremy.
Do you think that you're not good enough? Do you think it's because you're not good enough that God can't make you a leader?
Like
Do you
Jeremy.
really know what God is looking for? Now we know that God often accredits his leaders with miracles, which is kind of cool. And Joshua's no different. So the first thing that Joshua has to do is he has to get an entire nation across a river. Have you ever tried to cross a river? It's not easy to do. Now can you imagine doing it with men, women, cattle, everything, like trying to get a whole nation across? Okay, how are we going to do this? We're going to have ropes, we're going to have... How are you going to do this? And God's like, I've got this. So God creates a miracle that is very practical, but also kind of shows his favor for Joshua. God comes to them and says, you're going to cross over on dry ground. So when the ark gets near the water, and the plan is that those who are carrying it, as soon as their feet touch the water is going to dry up. The water is going to recede. And the entire nation will be able to cross over on dry ground. And not a single person gets wet. You can imagine when God performs this miracle, and the nation's like walking through this dry riverbed, across and to the other side. They're like, wow, I think Joshua might actually be the leader. This is pretty cool. The entire nation crosses over, and they're like, you know what? This is actually pretty awesome because, it'd be really lame to have to run into battle with wet drawers on, So, but then it's really funny because, God does the unexpected.
Yeah.
They get across the river. They're here in the promised land. All right, we're here. We just came with power. We just crossed over this river. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
This is awesome. We just smashed 2 kingdoms. It is time for the battle, right?
Yeah.
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite.
Oh.
God does something unexpected and he reveals his plan. We're going to pick up the story of Joshua chapter 5, verse 2.
Come on.
Jeremy. Come on,
What's
Jeremy.
up, bro?
At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again. Flip down to verse 4. Now this is why he did so. All those who came out of Egypt, all the men of military age, died in the desert on the way after leaving Egypt. All the people that came out had been circumcised, but all the people born in the desert during the journey from Egypt had not. The Israelites had moved about the desert 40 years until all the men who were of military age when they left Egypt had died, since they had not obeyed the Lord. For the Lord had sworn to them that they would not see the land that he solemnly promised their fathers to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So he raised up their sons in their place, and these are the ones Joshua circumcised. They were still uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised along the way. And after the whole nation had been circumcised, they remained there in camp until they were healed. Then the Lord said to Joshua, today I've rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you, so this place will be called Gilgal to this day. On the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. The manna stopped the day after they ate the food from the land. There was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. You see, the people of Israel were chosen.
Yeah.
They were chosen to be different. They were chosen to be faithful and obey. They were chosen to be separate. There was supposed to be a difference among them. This was God's kingdom, and he's very passionate about his kingdom. The covenant between Abraham and God in Genesis 17 that separated God's people from the others started with circumcision. In Joshua 5, God calls them back to his original vision for their kingdom. Maybe at this moment you would expect a rousing speech from Joshua. And then Joshua raised up in front of the crowd and says, today we go for war! And he raises up and gets everybody fired up and they're all clanking their armor.
Right.
Maybe you're expecting that.
No.
But it doesn't happen. Maybe you're expecting something else. Maybe you're expecting, all right guys, All right, let's get together. Let's knock down some trees. Let's build some siege works. We're going to take down all these fortified cities. Let's build it. Doesn't do it.
Right.
Maybe you'd expect it to be like the movies. They cross over the river.
Yeah.
Everybody's putting on their armor.
Just like that, bro. Come on.
And they're beating their chests, and they're pulling out their swords, and they're getting roused up for war.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen.
No. No.
It doesn't happen at all.
Wow.
Joshua stands up and calls the people to return to God.
Right.
Joshua then not only has to be obedient to God, but he calls other people to be obedient to him as well.
Come on, Jeremy.
I'm sure there are probably some people who weren't as fired up about the circumcision thing.
Yeah.
You know? Like, maybe we can just get like 3 degrees of separation from the people around us. Ironically, life is hard when you don't obey God.
Yeah.
When you obey God, you expect your life to be hard. You expect things to be difficult. Like if I obey God, it's going to be tough. It's actually the opposite. It's really funny how that works. But in Psalm 119:2, it says, "Happy are they who keeps his statutes
Right.
and seek him with all their heart." So what happens after the people are called back to God? They obey. They have this awesome celebration. They celebrate the Passover inside the Promised Land. Do you notice how odd that is? They're like you're marching into a place to take it over. Hold up, guys. We'll be with you in a minute.
Yeah.
We're going to stop and get right with God.
Mm.
Do you ever wonder like how God arranged it to where they could do that? If you want a little sneak peek, just look at chapter 6, verse 1. God actually made all the people fear them so that they wouldn't even leave their cities. So
Right.
they could have time to get right with God. There is always time to get your life right with God.
Yeah.
Good point.
Come on.
So he gives them time to get their life right with God. And when they obey, they have this awesome celebration. They're not getting ready for war. They're having an awesome feast. They celebrate the Passover. Have you ever seen God do awesome things, and then you still lack confidence? Wow, the campus is growing. Great job, bro. That's awesome, you know? But my Bible talk, you knew who was in it.
Come on.
Maybe you
Come on,
don't
Jeremy.
believe that God can do awesome things through you.
Come on, bro.
God actually addresses this with Joshua. He sends an angel in verse 13. Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up and asked him, "Are you for us, or are you for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy." And Joshua did so. This is an amazing scene. An angel shows up. Can you imagine what that's like? It's like in the Old Testament, when an angel showed up. One time an angel showed up and just destroyed 185,000 people. So Joshua has reason to be afraid. He's like, angels are awesome. So this angel shows up with a sword drawn. And Joshua goes to him strong and courageous and says, "Are you here for us or for them?" If you're here for them, that's not good. Why would God not be with them? Where do you get your confidence from this morning?
Great question, bro.
Is it from the results of your life? Results can vary from time to time.
Right.
Is it how awesome you are? You know what I love about God? I don't have to get confidence from who I am. I don't have to get confidence from results. When we started our Bible talk out at the Eva Mall, the Capillet Mall, I told my Bible talk, I was like, if you're expecting awesome things to happen because I'm leading this, that's really, really sad, because it won't be because of that. Okay? the truth is, where do we get our confidence from? Where's your confidence from? Where's your faith reside? Why do you think your Bible talk is going to be fruitful? Why do you think you are going to be fruitful? Why do you think that you can do anything with your life? Why do you think God is with you?
Man.
Come on.
Isaiah 50 verse 10. Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? Let him who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of the Lord and rely on his God. We get our confidence from the word of God and from obeying it.
Yeah.
Come on.
Deuteronomy 4:1 and 28:1 are written at different times in Israel's history with the same exact message. If you obey, I will bless you. Do you ever wonder why the Israelites were able to celebrate? It's because God set apart a time. What was the message of the angel? The message of the angel was really interesting. He gives Joshua a very specific plan. In Joshua 6 verse 2, then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. You have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. And on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing their trumpets. When you hear the long blast of the trumpet, have all the people shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and then you go straight in and attack." And one more command, down in 6 verse 19. All the silver and gold, articles of bronze and iron, anything that's valuable, is sacred to God, put it in the treasury. So these are the commands. Okay, so we are going to take this large, fortified, awesome city of Jericho by marching around it, not saying anything, we're just going to march around it. And then on the 7th day, we're going to march around it 7 times. We blow the trumpets and shout. You will make the walls come down. We just run in and attack, and then we give you everything that's valuable from this to honor you. Okay, I can follow that. So Joshua gives this command, to his commanders, and the crazy thing is they do it.
Come on.
They go around it, and on the 7th day they do 7 laps, and they shout, and the walls come down. God is awesome. They have this huge victory, and they're able to destroy the city, and they burn it, and everything is gone. Why do you think God gave them this plan? What if they marched around 5 times and shouted? What if on the 7th day they're like, "Man, I know I've seen that rock like 4 times." They're like, "Can we just stop now? Let's just do the trumpet thing." What if they stopped it 5 times around the walls?
Right.
What if they did it at 6.5? They're like, 6.5? God, that's got to be good enough.
Wow.
6.5.
Wow.
Let's turn, let's shout, let's do this thing. No, they had to obey.
Right.
Why did they have to do it that way? Because God wanted to teach them to obey.
Come on.
There was a call, and without obedience, it wouldn't have worked. You would think this lesson would get through, right? That's a pretty profound lesson, but for some reason it doesn't quite. And which leads me to the 3rd reason why I love God.
Come on, bro.
Every person matters to God. Come on.
Amen.
Amen.
For God, His kingdom is everything. And what is God's kingdom? Think about it. It's all the people who will be with God in heaven. Here we're talking angels, but we're also talking Christians.
That's right.
Okay? And before I ever knew about God, He cared about me and wanted me to be part of His kingdom. And God wants you to be part of His kingdom.
Yeah.
And He wants you to help build His kingdom. Every Christian who's baptized knows that. When we're baptized, we have work to do.
Yep.
But what if somebody inside of God's kingdom decides, you know what, God's kingdom is great, but this is actually better? What if somebody in God's kingdom thinks something else is more important? A career, a future, some money, whatever it is. Something else is more important to God. And they start hurting the people in God's kingdom.
Wow.
What will God do? Let's look in chapter 7.
Come on, bro.
In chapter 7, we have a sad turn of events.
Come on, bro.
And in verse 1 it says, "But all the Israelites acted unfaithfully in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now Joshua sent some men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven, to the east of Bethel, and told them, 'Go up and spy out the region.' So the men went up and spied out Ai, and when they returned to Joshua, they said, 'Don't all the people have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it. Don't weary out the people, because only a few men are there.' So about 3,000 men went up, but they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted and became like water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, 'Sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites and destroy us? If only we'd been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Oh, Lord, what can I say? Now that Israel has been routed by its enemies, the Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth. What then will you do for your great name?'" Wow.
Come on.
One man decides, "Hey, God is awesome. You know what's more awesome than God? Nice robe, some silver, some gold." One man decides he'll be part of God's kingdom. But you know what? I'm gonna hold back a plan B.
Right. Come on.
How often can we do this?
Right.
We can have a plan B in our lives.
Yeah.
What does it matter if I'm a little dishonest? What does it matter if I love money? What does it matter if I mix back in with my friends, the world? What does it matter if I'm not all in?
Come on, Jeremy.
Come on, bro.
What does it matter if I don't feel like evangelizing? God's kingdom is awesome. It'll move on without me. I'm just one person. No one's going to know. No one's going to say anything to me. How much does God care about His kingdom?
Right. Come on, bro.
More than you will ever know.
Yeah.
God cares about each and every person. In fact, in John 10:28, He says, He holds His children so tightly that no one can snatch them from His hand.
Right.
His kingdom was set aside. You see, Achan, he just lost that. He forgot it. So what does God do? Well, unfortunately, He has to first deal with an emotional Joshua. The guy who still thought it had to do with him.
Yeah.
So he had this, this faithful plea to God, "Oh God, why did you ever bring us across the Jordan? Why are you going to destroy us? Why is it so terrible?" And I love how God responds to him. Let's pick it up in verse 10.
Come on, Jeremy. Come on, bro.
The Lord said to Joshua, "Stand up! What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned and violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them in their own possessions, and that's why the Israelites can't stand up to their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they've been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy among you whatever is devoted to destruction."
Wow. Wow.
So what were God's encouraging words to this distraught Joshua? He's like, "Get up, get off your face, obey me.
Yeah.
It's not about you, Joshua.